All right.
All right, what's good, everybody? Welcome back to Journeyman Sports Podcast. Again, we're here with both of us today, as you can see. We're coming back with all this great content, man. A lot of exciting content in general. Eventually, we're going to be moving into NBA and stuff. But right now, with the Super Bowl right around the corner and the NFL fresh on the mind, I feel it's only right that we get into some NFL topics. So today, we just thought it'd be fun looking kind of past the Super Bowl and looking down the line, especially since me and Garrett, to be honest, as fans, we're not super invested in the Super Bowl this year. We're kind of looking into next year already and getting excited about some stuff. So this is kind of like a way too early prediction of play. We each chose four players that we think are going to pop out and have like a breakout season next season, and take that next step as players. So I'll say my player and give my reasoning. Garrett will then give his feedback, and then he'll give me a player, and we'll do the same thing. And that's kind of the format for today's video. So, Garrett, before we jump in, how you doing today? Hope everything's okay. And are you excited to get into these players, man?
Yeah, this is fun. This is the fun stuff for me about doing this is looking ahead, trying to call our collective shot ahead of. Obviously, we're really far before the next season because this season hasn't even ended yet. But there are a lot of fun young players in the NFL that even if they didn't have a Pro Bowl, All Pro type of year this year, they showed lots of flashes. And yeah, this is a fun thing for me to try and predict, and then hopefully come back to these this time next year, and we can both be super proud of getting 8 for 8 as a group because
Yes,
that's always how it works. So
and just a little disclaimer for y'all: we did try to choose. We did not pick any rookies from the upcoming class because we felt that would be unfair, and there's really no judgment of where anyone
yeah,
end up. So we don't know. And we also tried to choose players within the 2 to 3 year range of being in the NFL. Kind of guys that are still young in their career and haven't gotten to show a lot. So there's not going to be like Taysom Hill is about to be the best quarterback in the NFL next year.
yeah,
That's not going to be one of our takes. Um,
yeah. And we're not going to say like CJ Stroud is going to break
yeah,
out again
nothing
next year,
obvious.
anything like that. We're trying to go a little bit more under the radar. I'm sure there will be some names that everyone says like, oh, duh, like everyone could have
Yeah.
guessed that, but that's all part of it. So
I'm gonna change. I didn't let you know. I didn't let Garrett know this before the show. I'm gonna change one of the names on my list when we get to it. But I'm gonna let you start off with the first name, and then I'll.
all right. So first name for me, I'm just gonna start off from kind of the. I guess we'll just start with the players we definitely think are gonna break out next year. And number one on my list, really to no surprise, is Bijan Robinson. He had a great year this year. Like he's a stud. I'm sure he's gonna be a future All Pro guy. Could even be next year. I think with Arthur Smith being gone, I think hopefully that really unlocks a lot of this offense as a whole with Bijan, Kyle Pitts, Drake London. There's an abundance of talent in Atlanta
I
that's really
just
being
hope. I just hope
ready to
that
be used.
Dan Campbell hires a good OC.
They kept their OC. The Lions did. Bijan's on the Falcons.
Or yeah, I'm sorry. Um, who am I
Whoa,
thinking?
holy
Oh, no,
cow.
no. I'm thinking of the head coach that just got hired there. That's who I'm trying to say. Was it Raheem
Oh,
Morris for the
I
Falcons?
honestly don't remember. I'll look it up.
I
But
think it was either Dan Campbell or Raheem Morris. Anyway, go ahead. That's who I was. Whoever got hired as the head coach.
yeah, it's Raheem Morris.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Never mind.
So
Never mind.
yeah,
Disregard. I got those two mixed up. Anyway,
yeah,
I hope that the OC or
yeah. Whoever it
is better with management of players over there.
yeah, whoever it is, they don't have a hard mark to beat, honestly. But Bijan is a guy that I mean, he can affect the game through the run and the pass, and I think even in the limited capacity he was in this year, he was still an absolute stud. And I mean, it's only up from here. I think his touches are going to boom next year, and I really think that he has the potential to look a lot like Todd Gurley did in his prime, which not everyone might remember, but that dude was legit.
Beast.
So
A
yeah,
beast.
that's my first pick.
Alrighty. I really like that pick. Sorry for mixing the head coaches up there. But I'm pretty sure Raheem Morris is still kind of more on the defensive side of thinking in terms of coaching. So I just hope that the OC coming into Atlanta actually uses Kyle Pitts, actually uses players that they took in the top 10. But, because I think that's probably a good recipe for success. But all in all, yeah, I like that pick a lot. I don't think necessarily that's one that's obvious either, because I think a lot of people looked at Bijan this year and are like, damn, he fell short of what I thought he was going to do, or like, damn, this guy looked better, or whatever. But
Yeah,
then you really look at, there was literally games where he got 4 carries, 5 carries, and it's like, okay, well,
it's unbelievable sometimes.
yeah, it was bad. I had him in one of my best ball drafts, and I was pissed. But anyway, moving on to my pick, my first player of the day. It's another running back from this past class, a guy that I really loved. Disclaimer: he was my favorite running back in the class coming into this year, but especially after I watched him play behind Derrick Henry this year, and he just showed a lot of cool little flashes. Just looks like a really exciting player and looks like he could have a breakout year. That's Tyjae Spears, running back for the Titans. He's kind of more of that Aaron Jones, Alvin Kamara-esque type, where he's going to do a lot of the receiving. Even Jahmyr Gibbs, like he's kind of one of those backs where he can do some receiving, but he's more elusive in open space and is going to kind of figure out ways to get free when there's none. It seems like he's just one of those really exciting runners, really, really fast runners, turns the corner insanely fast. So I just think Tyjae Spears, especially with Derrick Henry seemingly being on the move, that's going to open up a majority of the carries for him to take. And I don't think Hassan Haskins is taking touches away from him. So
no.
Unless they draft another big name running back, I think Tyjae Spears is kind of their plan moving forward and is going to be a breakout player for them.
That's exactly what I was just going to say. It all kind of depends on who the new group of coaches and all that wants to bring in. But I think he's shown more than enough flashes to warrant getting at least being the favorite going into this camp or whatever for being the number 1 running back. And great plug and play guy for fantasy. He saved me a couple weeks, but
yeah, he was one of those guys. Like I had Jerome Ford and Nick Chubb on a different league. Like I picked up Jerome Ford after Nick Chubb got hurt. Jerome Ford got hurt, so I'm like, bro, I'm left with nothing. I gotta go somebody, and I went and grabbed him, and he got me like 13 points that week. But
yeah, he's really solid back, and that kind of brings me to my next player, who this is also sort of situation based, is Cade Otton, tight end for the Buccaneers. He had really, really solid postseason. In my opinion, I think he was a big part of their success down the line. And to me, I think this really depends on if the Bucs bring back Baker Mayfield, which I don't know why they wouldn't. I thought Baker played pretty well this year, especially
I think Baker elevated expectations. I don't think like people we've made jokes about it on TikTok. Like we know what I've made jokes about it 1,000 times just because people love to get all up and bothered about Baker. But I've even said like the Mike Evans and Chris Godwin stuff. Yes, that stuff helps, but then you also watch his leadership style this year throughout every single game when they played. He kept them in games they shouldn't have been in. He rose his team to that next occasion. So I think yes, they should keep Baker.
Yeah, and I think Cade Otton would be a direct beneficiary of that retaining of Baker Mayfield, and I think that kind of is the like asterisk on this one for me, kind of like you just said with Tyjae Spears. But I think he's got all the right tools, and I think Baker has been pretty good over his career with like tight ends that he has on his team. Like Njoku is really like the biggest one, I guess, that stands out. Kind of the one I'm going off with this. I don't think Cade Otton will be a David Njoku. I just don't think physically it's there, but great, like really good tight end. And I think he could be in for a much bigger role next year, especially if Mike Evans does decide to leave
I
in the
think
offseason.
if I had to compare K Dot to anybody, it'd be like a Dalton Schultz.
Yeah, that's another guy I thought about putting on this list too.
Yeah, like I think he looks a lot. Just when I watch him play, he reminds me a lot of Dalton Schultz. But I mean, yeah, I think K Dot. From what I saw this year, it seems like his first 2 years in the league, it seemed like his biggest struggles were a lot of the time it was like his blocking that kind of sold him, and got kind of made him not have as much of an impact in some games, especially when Brady was there and like blocking was much bigger of a thing. Now I feel as though he's cleaned up his blocking some and has also kept that like receiver tight end label while cleaning up his blocking. So I think now
Yeah.
he's a jack of all trades, master of none type, which is good. So moving on to my second player, a guy who balled out this year, and kind of went from like a guy that nobody was really talking about to begin with, not really a name that was mentioned, to being like probably the number one wide receiver on his team moving forward, and that is Rashee Rice. I think out of all rookie wide receivers, he had the biggest challenge to kind of meet. You could argue Zay Flowers had another big challenge too, but I mean Rashee Rice didn't have that certified number one that he could kind of come in and learn from. It was just kind of a lot of role player guys when he got there, like MVS and Kadarius Toney, all these guys that have had individual moments of success in their career, but are not star players, are not established veterans, nothing like that. I think when he got there, that's just a very hard situation to learn in, and especially when you're getting all that outside hate from the media of, oh, the receiving core is terrible, and oh, Rashee Rice isn't going to help, and da 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 da. And then this dude just started making plays little by little. You would see Andy Reid put him on the field in certain situations. All of a sudden, Patrick Mahomes would find the ball, and he's a great yak receiver like Rashee Rice. If you give him any open space, he will find a way to get gone. He's very good at making people miss. He's very good at kind of catch and go type of stuff. He's a very fun receiver to watch because he can do that stuff, but he can also go deep down the field and beat somebody and win in a Moss situation if he needs to. As we've seen him do both. So I think moving forward, looking at the other guys in the room, I don't see another guy that's going to be a number one in there. But I think he legitimately, if he reaches his ceiling, could end up being the number one receiver for the Chiefs for the long run if he keeps developing and kind of perfecting what he already has going on. So I think, especially in your rookie year, to already be showing that type of upside as like a third round or a fourth round pick is very impressive. And I think it only means like the sky's the limit for him moving into next year.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really think there's a lot that he's lacking as a player, and obviously Mahomes is going to help. And I think he's, like you said, he's just only going to continue to get better. But he couldn't have gotten off on a much better foot, and especially throughout the season, as we'll talk about in a video that'll come out later after this with the Super Bowl. He really did stand out amongst a group that during the regular season was pretty poor for a lot of the season, and he had his drop problems too, more expected from a rookie, but he really, really did put himself into a different echelon than those other receivers other than Kelsey. And yeah, I think he's a great pick, and yeah, I really like his potential.
And someone that I've continuously beat the table for on this podcast, and I will say that I love him forever, but it just doesn't look like it's going to work out in the NFL at this point. I was hoping to be talking about Justin Ross, but it just doesn't look like it's going to be coming along ever. Doesn't look like he's ever going to get the chance or show the flash that I was hoping. So as much as I wish it would be a different Chiefs receiver, I'm very happy to see that Rashee Rice is kind of coming into his own, because I was a fan of him coming out of SMU anyway. So
yeah, my next pick is a receiver as well. Plays for the Colts. Josh Downs. I mean, another just talk about adapting to a multitude of different situations throughout the season. With the Colts, sort of the revolving door that they were as a team this year.
And they always seem to be for some reason. But
yeah, and I mean, I could really put Alec Pierce on here as well. I think with Richardson coming back, Richardson just can make so many more throws that Minshew just physically can't.
As much as we love Minshew on this podcast.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
We love Gardner Minshew.
Fan.
But
as a Jags fan, I was there when it all started. But I mean, I think that Josh Downs is going to benefit the most. Him and Alec Pierce, I mean, really, screw it. We'll just make this about both of them. I mean, both of these guys, I think, are going to go through the moon. They have the potential to go way, way up next year. Josh Downs even after the catch, he's just so smart. He knows when to get down. Unlike, in my opinion, a lot of receivers try and do a little bit too much after the catch. He's smart, knows when he kind of reminds me, I think he could follow that T.Y. Hilton sort of path. I think maybe that's a bit of a reach, and you can call it what you want.
T.Y. is great, but I see in terms of
player archetype,
that's what T.Y. was. Is he's going to catch the ball, make the huge play, but he's not going to get hit.
Yeah, and I think that is something that a lot of receivers lack. And Josh Downs seems like the complete package. Maybe a little bit small from what you would want, but already had a great rookie year with Gardner Minshew, and I think Richardson is going to help both of those receivers, but especially Josh Downs. I think, especially if Pittman doesn't come back, I think he's going to. I don't know why he wouldn't, but I think Josh Downs is going to be a great number 2 to Pittman's number 1. So I'm really excited to see what he does next year, and scared as a Jags fan.
I
want him to do well, but I don't at the same time.
My question is, though, with the receiver market being the way it is, like now everyone wants that alpha, and I think Michael Pittman is pretty close to becoming an alpha in the league if he's not already there. So if Pittman doesn't come back, which one would you say gets more of the looks? Would you say Pierce?
Oh, Josh Downs, 100%. I think Pierce is more of the big play threat kind of guy with his size and speed combo, but I think Josh Downs could easily be if Pittman were to leave, easily be a 10-12 target per game guy. And yeah, I think that's a really interesting young duo to watch.
And since we're on the topic, I'll ask the question: what do you think Pittman should ask for? Or what do you think is reasonable for Pittman?
Reasonable, I would say 15-ish, 15 to anywhere from 15 to 18. I
was going to say 3 years, 60. How would you feel?
I'm not a Colts fan, so it doesn't affect me. I think the Colts would be reaching a little bit. I think that's a slight bit of an overpay, but also that would be the right person to overpay because you're only helping your young quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that would be a good deal. I wouldn't be surprised at all if that's what it falls into. But I think if Pittman really wants to help the Colts be what they could be, I think he should take 15 to 18, take a little bit less than what he probably wants. And that just helps you bring back a lot more talent on that team. But who knows, man? The wide receiver market is bonkers nowadays. So Pittman could end up with more than 20. I would, if I had to price what I think Pittman would be worth for a team, I think it would be around 15 to 18 million. And I don't think that it would be a bad move for the Colts to sign him to a deal like that at all.
I don't think so either, especially, they just paid Jonathan Taylor. They have money over there. They just hate spending.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Moving kind of from one receiver to the next, this is the one that I'm going to spring on Garrett that I didn't necessarily talk with him about before we hopped here on to the podcast. Pop Douglas, Demario Douglas, slot receiver for the Patriots.
Interesting.
I'm gonna do kind of a 1A, 1B thing with you as well, kind of what you just did with Pierce and Downs. I'm gonna say him and Kayshon Boutte. I want to emphasize on Kayshon Boutte because it's already been talked about everywhere. Like if you look at Patriots media through this past season, everyone was beating the door for Kayshon Boutte to play more. Because whenever he would get on the field, he would make plays or he'd make the catch or nothing insane. He didn't have necessarily any crazy things, but when we saw him play in the preseason, you heard that he had one of the best training camps of anyone at Patriots camp. Like
that's a dude that he always will bet on himself. Always will bet on himself.
And the thing is, he's shown already at the college level. The only reason he fell to a 6th-round pick was not football related. It was the trouble that he got into with that coach, like in the media and stuff, when he was at LSU towards the end of his career. Like that's the reason he fell to the 6th round, not because he's a bad football player. I really think he's a 2nd or 3rd round pick in terms of talent if you are just looking based off of his track record in college. But there was a season before Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas and everything came along at LSU where Kayshon Boutte was the guy, and he was legitimately, I think it was his junior season. I think his junior season, he was literally one of the most dominant receivers in all of college football. Like he was dominant with not any name at quarterback either. Like it wasn't like some quarterback that was going to the league the next year or anything like that. So I think he has huge upside, especially with Belichick out of the building now, because we know that Belichick doesn't like to play the young guys. He loves the veterans. He loves the guys that have been in the league for X amount of years, whatever. The only time he's going to play a young guy is if he's really good. So I think Kayshon Boutte is going to get more of a look with a guy like Gerard Mayo in the building. And then Pop Douglas already had a pretty good rookie year, was probably already one of the best Patriots receivers this year as a rookie. I think he's only going to stack on top of that next year. But I wanted to add Boutte in there because it's like 1A, 1B. I think these could be guys that are, even if they aren't your number 1 and your number 2, those are guys that could be your 3 and 4 or your 2
and 3. Really good rotation pieces.
Right. So I think those are guys to keep an eye on, especially Boutte being a 6th-round pick and everything. Just keep an eye on him, man. I heard a lot of good stuff coming out of practice and a lot of good stuff about Patriots fans wanting him to play. So I'm kind of looking forward to hoping that can happen next season. And those are that was my next pick because Patriots need some receivers. So that would be
they need a lot of stuff.
Yeah. That would be
a lot of problems to fix. Yeah, I mean, I don't know a lot about Boutte other than the off the field stuff. Like,
it's unfortunate.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, I saw a little bit of Pop Douglas this year. He seems like he's got some potential and could be a guy you just have to manufacture a couple touches a game for and just try and get him into open space.
If I had to do a comp for what I think he could be, I'm only because you gave a comp. I would say I think he could be like a Jamison Crowder, like a Redskins Jamison Crowder.
Yeah,
that's kind of what I view him in that role. Maybe more of a deep threat than Jamison Crowder was, but kind of that like slot, sit down in the zone, catch the ball, turn around and run up the field type of receiver.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. I don't know a lot about those guys, so I don't really have much to add. But move on to my last player, who is a little bit of bias in here, but Trayvon Walker on the Jags. He had a
little bit of bias.
Just a little bit. I mean, I was not a fan of him getting picked over Aiden Hutchinson. I'm still not a fan of that at all. I think
it should have been Hutchinson.
100%. I mean, I don't even know why it was a choice, but it's neither here nor there. He's in Jacksonville now. He had a big improvement from his rookie year to this year, which was really good to see, reassuring on some levels. But I think he is bound for I think he's going to get into double-digit sacks next year. him and Josh Allen are a very, very good edge duo.
Josh Allen
Especially,
is so underrated right now.
yeah, it's ridiculous. We could
Nobody
go off on
talks
a
about him.
dude had like the second most sacks in the league and isn't even up for Defensive Player of the Year. I could go off on that for a
Dude,
while.
but like that's not
Nobody talks about him.
but like when not even like people talk about rookies before they talk about him. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's a whole nother topic for another day. But I think Trayvon Walker could really take that next step. I think hopefully there's a little bit of fire ignited under him to want to keep getting better. I mean, of course, like just like I did, like every time you bring him up, Aiden Hutchinson is right there to follow, and I hope that continues to guide him to get to where I think he can be. I think he could be a similar player to Josh Allen. I don't think he'll be as good as Josh Allen is right now, but I think if he takes that next step in his third year, I think you could talk about this as being one of the best edge rushing duos in the league. Maybe not on the level of like Bosa and Chase Young or anything, but I think that could be a staple of this Jacksonville defense and help correct kind of what went wrong this year towards the end.
There's a lot more young defensive talent on that Jags team than I even realized. But
yeah, it just all needs to come together and they need to stay healthy.
it will.
Yeah.
It will. I feel like that's one of those teams it's kind of like Cleveland. Like no one's gonna notice them until they do something, and then people are gonna be like, "Oh shit, Cleveland's for real." But
Yeah.
or like Houston, But I don't know. I think you're right. The only thing that makes me like it, I feel like he's just been I feel like Trayvon Walker's been one of those players that's like very up and down. Like it's very like either he is not even on the screen and I can't even find him because he's just so irrelevant, or he's up the quarterback's ass and like right there and on him and making plays left to right in the run game and whatever. Like it's
he has some games where he just disappears. And that's kind
he's
of
the Amari Cooper of edge rushers, but
kind of, yeah.
But I mean, yeah, no, I think I actually said something in another video that's going to be coming out about the Jags, and I think that they're going to be turning the corner here. I know everyone kind of thought last year would be the year that they did that, but I just think sometimes it's not on everybody else's time, and I think they need one more like building year and really.
Yeah, that was like me. Like I figured they would win the division. I also didn't expect CJ Stroud to be as good as he was, but I always thought, and I feel like I said this to you plenty of times, like I had high expectations for this year. Like I figured we'd be definitely a playoff team, 10, 11 wins at our best, but I've told you, like, I always thought this next year was the year where it would really, really happen. And I think maybe I jumped the gun a little bit. That can happen when your team is so bad for so long.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I think there's still a lot of positives around this team, a lot more positives than what people want to give right now. And yeah, I mean it'll be interesting, and I think if the Jags do want to bounce back next year, he's going to be one of the big players.
I think what was also important was for Trevor to like actually solidify himself as like the franchise guy moving forward, and I think he did enough this year. I think he tried to play a little bit too much hero ball at sometimes this year. Like
play calling was just awful all year. That's my gripe.
Yeah, I think like he was trying to play hero ball at certain times this year where it wasn't really required. But I also think that he did enough to show like, okay, yeah, you're the guy.
Yeah, you see the flashes. It's just he really needs to nail in the consistency because like he had a great beginning of the year, and then once those injuries started piling up, which I think that was mismanagement on the Jags. I think they just should have sat him against Cleveland and Baltimore, and then you had three
like the hardest teams to play against as a quarterback.
And then you had three very winnable games down the stretch. They should have won out, but I mean that's another a whole nother thing. So we'll get to your last player. I don't want to get off on a tangent.
Nah, you're good. You're good. All right. I originally was thinking about a corner for this spot, but I'm gonna pivot and go D line because I'm more of a D line guy, having played D line myself. I'm gonna say Jordan Davis. I feel like Jordan Davis kind of has been like forgotten about because they drafted the name is not coming to me.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter.
Yep.
Sorry. Yeah, they drafted Jalen Carter, and everyone was kind of like, "Oh, who's this Jordan Davis guy anymore?" Da da da. And Fletcher Cox is still there, and it seems as though the Eagles always have crowded rooms, but especially at the D line. Like now, they've gotten rid of Derek Barnett. Now Fletcher Cox is probably gone this offseason. Like things are going to start to fall in place, and playing time is going to open up, and that's a top 10 pick just sitting and has been sitting there. And obviously Jalen Carter got more playing time right away, even as a rookie, because Jalen Carter was legitimately, if you look at pressure rate, he had the second highest pressure rate in the entire NFL as a rookie. So yeah, obviously that guy's going to play. But I feel like Jordan Davis about the dude can still, I know he can still get home, because when he was on the field for the Eagles this season, he was effective in both the pass rush and run stopping game. So like I said, I just think it was more of a rotational issue. They didn't necessarily know how to alternate everybody, which is also why I think they ran into problems against teams in the playoffs, is because they no longer had the rotations down. Things weren't moving as smoothly.
Just that whole slide at the back half of the year.
Yeah. And so I think, it makes it easy to get overshadowed when you have guys like Fletcher Cox and stuff in front of you. And Jalen Carter comes in and kind of sparks stuff. But Jordan Davis, taken 2 years ago, is pretty much fresh legs at this point. I think he can come in next season, be a legitimate part of that starting front, whether they decide to run 4 or 5. But, yeah, I think he can come in, be an absolute mauler next to Jalen Carter. They'll still have an insanely dominant defensive line for many, many years to come. I don't think that, losing Fletcher Cox is honestly going to have that much of an impact on them at this point in his career.
Yeah.
So I think Jordan Davis is going to come in, take Fletcher Cox's spot, and Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis are going to be the two for a while to come.
Yeah, that's a really good potential duo. I mean, and it would just kind of be recycled of what happened with Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham. I mean, I know Graham was an edge rusher, but just still having two dominant players like that on the defensive line and
for that long.
Yeah, the Eagles yet again are just setting themselves up for more success. I think they've got to get Jalen Hurts figured out. It's kind of it's another different thing for a different time, but I think that defense is on the front end set up for success with those two guys.
No, I think so too. They need to figure out corner for sure, because corner is fucking terrible.
Yeah, it's bad.
Surprisingly, I thought Bradbury and Slay were going to be good for one.
Slay's pretty good, but Bradbury just fell off the face of the earth this year.
But even Slay, it's like I remember last year Slay before this year, and like he was literally locked down, like nobody could touch him, and then this he's he's like Patrick Peterson in the Steelers jersey, like I don't know.
Yeah.
Not great, but not terrible either. So I mean, it's been fine. But yeah, I'm super excited for all these players. I know Garrett's super excited for all these players, y'all. Obviously, if we could sit here and talk football all day, then we would, and we'd bring up more names. If there's any names that we didn't bring up that you do want us to touch on in later videos, or maybe even make another video like this, just adding more players, let us know. Let us know who maybe some of your favorite or predicted upcoming players are. And yeah, man, we hope to keep bringing y'all some good NFL and NBA content, and maybe even some fighting stuff or something like that. We'll see, but we're gonna keep